So just making sure you're at the correct career panel. We are at how to break into data analytics. Aligning on today's goal. So we're going to have a conversation with these awesome data professionals and hear about their different career paths, and also learn about how they successfully navigated their job search, especially if this is something you're interested in, maybe taking a similar approach. The agenda for today is fairly simple. So we'll start with our intros, then we'll get into the panel discussion, and then get into the audience Q&A. So if you start coming up with questions throughout, definitely utilize audience Q&A time for that. So starting off, I'm Angie. I'm actually the director of our data program here at PatStream, and I'm joined today by Brooke, who's a technical learning experience designer, and you'll hear from later today. She's going to be moderating with our panel. And then our lovely panelists. So we have Catherine here, who's an IT solutions analyst, Julian, a senior analyst, and Matt, a lead business intelligence analyst. And you're going to be hearing all from them and way more extensive on their experience in just a bit. Great. So enough for me. We're going to jump right into the panel itself. So moving on to Brooke.
Thank you, Angie. And welcome to everybody that is here today. We are super excited to have you here, and we are super excited to introduce you to our panel. So let's jump right in. Everybody, or this question will go to our panel, and I'm going to go ahead and start with Catherine today. Catherine, can you tell us the story of how you started your career in data? How did you know this is what you wanted to do? And what did you do to break into the industry? So I hand it over to you, Catherine.
Yeah, thank you so much, Angie and Brooke, for the introduction. Welcome, everyone. We are happy to have you here. My name is Catherine Nakayenga, and I am the IT solutions analyst for Creighton University. So my story with data goes all the way back, probably 2015, 2016, that time period. And that was in my first job after college. I had gone to college for software engineering, and I was developing actively at that time. However, I was looking at all the data in the organization that I really felt that could be maximized at that point in time. And I got just very interested in the analytics version. So I was already working with databases and the concepts that surround data, but the analytics part of it is something that really, really intrigued me. And I decided to explore the options. What I did to break into the industry is I decided to do a master's degree in business intelligence and analytics. And that really gave me the foundational, knowledge for, the field and what I needed to know, the skill sets, the tools and everything. And and after that, I, got into the field, started working, and here I am today.
Thank you so much, Catherine. I think it's really interesting to hear because there are so many different ways to get into the field. And so it's great to hear your background and your experience, and looking forward to kind of digging more into that as we get into more questions going forward here. Julian, can I hand you the baton?
Yes, you can. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello, everyone. I'm Julian. I'm a senior analyst at Yelp in the revenue operations department. And my data career actually started in the finance and accounting world. My degree is actually in accounting. I did the Big Four internships. I did nonprofit, hedge fund. I hated all of it. Ironically, right before the pandemic, I had a budget project, and we were looking at the data for every department and how we gonna do, how we were gonna rebudget for the upcoming year. And that was the first time I ever saw a SQL query, simple 5-10 line query. And I was like, how do I do this it was the most fun I had in 4 years. And I was like, how do I do that? And it actually led me to my own research I found PathStream. I actually took the PathStream certificate course. I found ways of matching the financial data to the actual data world that I was working with. And then with the certificate, I had Tableau and SQL fundamental knowledge. And that's how I ended up at Yelp.
Well, I have to say, Julian, hearing your story, it was sort of like, oh, I was not finding, satisfaction in this. But then, and you were like, nope, but then I have not heard someone yet describe, the excitement of your first SQL query. I love it. And again, want to dig more into that going forward. I'm sure folks in the audience are excited to hear more about that too. I appreciate you sharing that.
Can I answer one question from the chat real quick? Someone asked me, why did I hate it? I thought I would have liked accounting because I was a numbers person, but there was no creativity. Accounting is very legal, structured, and it was the same thing every day. When I transferred over to more data, I'm in a more innovative, and I get to use my creative muscles, manipulate data, create dashboards, KPIs. And so that's why it went from being mundane, boring tasks to just, it's fun for me. The confusion in data is fun for me.
How cool. Yeah, I mean, accounting, the rules are the rules, right? But data is, you get to paint with data. So very cool. Matt, can I hand you the baton? Can you give us an introduction and tell us your story?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Brooke. And that was really inspiring, Catherine and Julian both. I really enjoyed hearing the backgrounds. Mine is a long way about to data. I had several different careers, dozens of jobs between the time I graduated in the early aughts with an education degree that I never used, never taught, but did dip into different careers. I worked in a bank for a while. I worked in construction. I worked in the food industry. I worked in the healthcare industry, but none of it was more of just transient work, and none of it was speaking to me, and none of it was a career. And so I found myself driving a box truck. It's called, for a company called Farm to Table in Austin, Texas, and just having a growth mindset. I always listened to podcasts while I drove, and one of the podcasts I listened to was Rich Roll, and there was a guy on there named Adam Braun, who was the founder of Mission U, which was a new startup, educational startup, which was offering a one-year program in data analytics and business intelligence. And I remember the moment I heard the podcast and they were opening applications that night. And that's also coincidentally where I met Angie. She was on the staff of the program. But I just had a feeling in my gut that night that I would apply to this program and I would get accepted and I would move to San Francisco and sort of start this new career. And that's what happened. I'm very lucky that that happened. But why did I want to break into it? I just wanted to get a set of skills that was portable into any industry, right? So like working construction, there was one thing I could do. I could install stadium seats, right? But I couldn't really take that into the banking industry or another industry. And so, yeah, data I just thought was a great opportunity to get a set of skills portable in any industry, and it's been that. So it's been great.
Thank you, Matt. And again, just sort of echo the theme here that everybody's bringing really different thoughts and ideas and backgrounds, and I'm really excited to dig in and explore. And I listen to the Rich Roll podcast too, so
nice.
So let's jump into our next question. Was there ever a moment in your career where you faced imposter syndrome, and what was that like, and how did you overcome it? So of course, this goes to the panel. Maybe just to get us started, I'll call on Catherine.
Yeah. So imposter syndrome. Oh my God. I just feel like imposter syndrome is something that people, think they are, suffering with alone, but actually happens to so many people. And the way that I, would define imposter syndrome is definitely, being, not aware of all the achievements you have and just always constantly doubting yourself in all these, many areas. I guess my experience with imposter syndrome, even when, achievements are really, evident that you have achieved and you still feel inadequate. For me, I guess it was just an absence of a blueprint. Coming from, I was working for an NGO, and that is not something that, was being done. I was not seeing it in our company. I just kind of, had a feeling that, the data that we're using, we're collecting so much data from, all over the country. And, it would kind of just go like in a black box, and we're really relying on, people who knew what the data was all about, but yet we did have the data and we could actually make some analysis of that. So I didn't see a blueprint, and that really gave me a little bit of imposter syndrome. So I guess another thing that gave me imposter syndrome in this field was I moved to another country altogether, and that kind of came with learning so much, learning, the social climate, the academic climate, because I was doing a master's degree in a different country, and also the work culture. It was so different for me. So that also kind of intimidated me a little bit. However, overcoming it in general, for me, what I did is I just kind of relied on some of the I guess like the skill sets or like the attributes that very many developers really have. You'll find that developers usually have some perseverance, especially when you're getting those errors. I don't know how it is with other people, but sometimes when you're writing a piece of code and you haven't yet, figured it out, you could sit for, for some time. And I don't know if that's healthy or not, but you could sit for quite a while and, just kind of, getting rid of the error or figuring things out is such a good thing. So that grit is, for me, is something that really I was really, relying on over and over again to overcome the imposter syndrome. So someone is asking in the chat, before I continue, where are you from? I'm from Uganda, in East Africa. And yeah, I moved to the United States when I was going to do my master's degree. So thanks for the question. So yeah, so I just kind of relied on that a lot. And the other thing that built my confidence around imposter syndrome was just to surround myself with people, who encouraged me, who, could, speak to the career ambitions I had, moving into this field of data analytics. And, I will say this, when it comes to like society or, the group that you surround yourself with, sometimes it's hard. I moved here by myself, so it was really hard for me to get like that sort of community around me. And I'll tell you guys, like, rely on YouTube. You can actually find people on YouTube who, have moved careers and, are in the field and, make content. And I relied on YouTube a lot. I would, watch videos of people creating content to do with data analytics, and that was always fun for me. I guess the final thing I would say that really helped with just imposter syndrome, and when I say helped, it doesn't mean that sometimes like it doesn't come up again. It's just something that is always there, in varying degrees. You just have to, keep working on it and putting it at the back of your head. It's just to seek, mentorship. So, people who have done it and are up there, they are always willing to actually, talk to you about some of these things. If you can, just catch 15 to 20 minutes with them and ask really candid questions, I found that to be really helpful. People will help you if you kind of get out of that, that zone where you're frozen, and just ask them a question.
Thank you, Catherine. A lot of important points you made. And I think one of the things I heard was, the grit involved and relying on the fact that you have skills and you have those skills. So, you just have to push forward with the work, and finding people through mentorship, finding people through YouTube. I mean, I think that's a great tip, is that virtually there are people out there that you can find for guidance. I want to open up to other comments, other thoughts on the panel.
Yeah, Brooke, I love the answer, Catherine, by the way. And I feel like this is something I feel every day. I mean, truly, at some point, I think I don't belong here. But really, I think the realization that that's an internal mechanism. That's not someone from the outside saying you don't belong here. That's something inside saying it. And I think that's an important realization for me. I like to interpret imposter syndrome as an opportunity to better understand what I don't know. And if something is making me feel like an imposter, maybe that's an opportunity to get more knowledgeable in that area, and sort of flip it on its head and look at it as an opportunity rather than a feeling that can be overwhelming at times. But I think it's really important to understand, for me, what I don't know what I don't know, and then that helps with imposter syndrome and focusing on learning, and just with that growth mindset, and that sort of dissipates the imposter syndrome feeling.
I love that, Matt, giving yourself permission to not know everything. And yeah, sometimes there are things you don't know, and that's okay. It's an opportunity to learn. It doesn't mean you're an imposter. And that distinction between internal versus external, it's not someone telling you you're an imposter, you're not good enough. It's something that's sort of in you, that voice that you have control over, you can do something about. But we all go through it, for sure. So I'm going to jump to the next question. What's one you knew about breaking into the data industry that you didn't know when you started? So Julian, would you like to kick us off?
Yes, I think coming from an accountant in the finance world, one thing I wish I knew or was more conscious of is you can't say yes to every task. That's one thing I struggle with. We have so many stakeholders, different departments, and they ask for so many different things. And some of the tasks are just out of scope, where it may take a year or two to finish it. We might not even have the resources at the time to complete the task. And so I've learned a trick to, tell the stakeholders, I can scope it out and give you a timeline of when we can complete this, if we can complete this. And I think that was something I struggled when I first came. Coming from a different industry, I wanted to prove myself. So I would get tickets and escalations of issues and problems we had to fix. And I would say yes to everything, but I was new to the company. I just was trying to prove myself. And I learned over time that some of these issues persisted, and there's still not a solution yet. And it's things we're still working on. So
I think that's great. And I think that's really good guidance. As you're saying it, I'm thinking, yes. I mean, that's sort of true of many different types of roles, but also I wonder about being in the data industry, being an analyst, and, your job is potentially universally applicable. All kinds of different departments and other kinds of people in roles will come to you because you have data and you can help them make decisions with that data. So it's a sought after skill, and people are going to ask you for your help, and you have to know about setting up boundaries. I love the idea of, scoping it. Let me think about this and get back to you. It gives you some time to think about it so that you're able to, assess what you can do, because you can't do everything. Are there other comments from our panel about this?
I would like to piggyback on Julian there. I think that's so important. It's tough for me as well. I think I'm a pleaser. And I want to do everything and I want to get everything done for everyone, but you just can't do it. And it reminds me something of my data mentor taught me, which is when it comes to estimating time to complete things, always double it. Whatever you come up with, double it. And I thought that was great advice. And my top thing, SQL. SQL, just how important it is and what an asset one becomes when they're fluent in SQL. Throw Excel in there too, but really SQL. I wish I would have been more practiced when I entered the workforce.
So Matt, I'm taking away SQL. Moving on to our next question. What's the best advice you received during your job search process for data roles? So does anybody want to jump in on this?
Sure. I can jump on this, Brooke. So advice I received when, getting into this, job search process is rely on the transferable skills that you have. It's very hard for, people to really believe that, they can actually use the skills from very many of the industries that they have a background in the data analytics world. But it is a, it's a real thing. And I've found that, just having that industry knowledge or, the domain expertise that, you have in that industry puts you on such a level that a data analyst who is coming in and, is having to learn all that domain, experience on that job is really going to have to do a lot of heavy lifting. But if you are in whatever industry you're coming from, whether it's retail, whether it's health or anything, you are already, set aside just by having those transferable skills that you can transfer into data analytics. So that is one advice I got. The other one that I did get was to network. Sometimes it's really, really important for you to talk to people, talk to the people, if you are going to school, talk to your professors, talk to your friends, try to seek out any, enrollment, or data career services that they have, if they have any, but also kind of go, outside that. You can talk to people, that, are in particular companies, and they don't have to be in the data field, but they could have a department or something like that. So, talk to them. LinkedIn, get on LinkedIn, send a few requests and, introduce yourself. Don't be shy. I know it's kind of, I used to do this a lot. I would just kind of go on job boards and I would look for, for roles, and I would apply and put in so many applications, and I would hear back. But I felt like some of the, the communication or the lengths that I've gone to get, interviews, from one interview to the second interview, sometimes to the third interview. Sometimes that comes from networking. So those two things is something I would say: rely on your transferable skills, definitely, and also network with the people that are already in your circles.
Yeah, those are great tips, Catherine. Absolutely, because we all bring a lot of skills, even if we're going to be transferring into a different field. There's a lot that you have to fall back on. And the networking piece is key. Just to put in sort of a little plug, we have content on our YouTube page that, where we have seminars that talk about this very thing. And we also have some upcoming webinars that we'll talk about at the end here that might also get into a little more detail around those particular aspects of job hunting. So I want to open it up to the rest of the panel. Is there other advice that you want to add? Well, let me move on. We've got plenty of questions. There's no shortage of questions today. So what advice do you have for prospective and current pathstream students that are career or starting one for the first time? And I'm going to call on Julian first to kick this off for us.
For this answer, I'm actually gonna piggyback to something Catherine said before, is that YouTube, Google, don't be afraid to use it. And I think Matt mentioned this as well. You're never gonna know everything. So that's key. Don't expect yourself to know everything. And that confusion feeling you get when you're dealing with tons of data, it's always gonna be there. So you kind of have to embrace it. And that's just part of like the learning mechanisms of data. I remember going through it in the course. I remember the subquerying section of the course, and I was just so annoyed I couldn't get the hang of it. Second month on the job, I had no choice but to embrace that confusion. And now like subquerying, building long queries is just something that I'm a natural at now. So really don't be afraid to go out and Google, YouTube, and embrace that confusion feeling.
I think that's awesome advice. And again, widely applicable to lots of different roles. I think there's a reason that Stack Overflow exists, right? If you have a problem, likely somebody else had it. So there are lots of resources out there for you. Other advice from Catherine or Matt?
Yeah, Stack Overflow. I mean, I often say I'm a professional Googler. I Google and Stack Overflow. I mean, I don't know how many times a day. I think it's just something one has to be an effective analyst. But I would say just get data experience on the resume. You know, even if it's a volunteer thing, if you have a cause that you're passionate about, ask about their data needs. Even if it's a spreadsheet and you can practice your formulas, just get it on the resume. I think that's most important. Always keep a growth mindset. Keep moving forward 1% at a time. You know, I know often I want to take big leaps in progress, and we have these great dreams. I'm a dreamer, but I think it's most effective to like keep thinking 1% at a time, 1% a day, get a little bit better. Am I better than I was yesterday? Whatever that looks like for you, and stay in the present moment. Those are my best tips.
Those are great tips. Thank you, Matt. And when you say growth mindset, also, I'm wondering, growth mindset, because it can be sort of described in different ways, but growth mindset is, at least when I'm thinking about it, you know, maybe you don't know X today, but tomorrow you might know X because you have the capacity to do that, right? You're not fixed, in other words. Am I getting that?
Yeah, that's how I consider it, Brooke. I consider a fixed mindset to say, I've never surfed, so I can't surf. Or, you know, with a growth mindset, you say, wow, I've never surfed, but I know I can. I know I could. You know,
Sure.
let's do it, right? So that's how I kind of define it: is telling yourself you can't versus you can, right?
Yeah.
So great answers from Julian and Matt there. You know, they really spoke to the core of, staying curious and, staying able to learn. So yeah, you just kind of you want to make sure that you come into the career of data with that mindset. For prospective and current students, especially at Pathstream, I will say that the package really doesn't stop there. There is so much learning to do out of that certificate, and that is a very good foundation for you to start and kind of leap into the field. Also, sometimes things take a really long time for you to learn them, and that is okay. I will say just make time. Just make time, even if it's 1 hour a day or 2 hours a day, to just focus on something that you believe can take your skill set from one level to the other. Whether going through the course or even after the course is something that you should dedicate time to. So with time, it all takes practice, but eventually, you'll get there.
Thank you, Catherine. And I feel like it's also very helpful to hear from, folks that are in the field doing this work, that you're still learning every day. And it really is just about the persistence and the growth mindset. And if you don't know something today, you can learn it tomorrow. So just to sort of, I mentioned this a little bit earlier, give a nod to, if you're interested in following up with a Pathstream program, you can get more details here. You can email us if you have questions. And I just wanted to make sure that that's available to the audience before we move on. We have some upcoming workshops. So if you're enjoying this workshop, I will say I'm learning a lot from the panel today. There are some other opportunities. So coming up, how to ace a data technical interview. We're going to talk about that on November 2nd, November 16th, how to break into digital marketing, November 30th, break into a Salesforce career, December 7th, how to answer the most popular interview questions. So tell me about yourself. And then December 14th, ask me anything with the Pathstream Career Service team. So those are our upcoming workshop series. If you can't make it, we record all of these and you can catch them on YouTube, on our YouTube channel as well. So I'm going to hand it over to manage audience Q&A with Angie.
Thanks, Brooke. And just an extra plug for the next workshop, for the technical interview workshop. It's going to be really exciting and a lot of help for those of you, especially that have never had a technical interview. It's going to be a lot of helpful information. So this part is going to be focused on answering all your questions. So I've seen a lot of great questions already kind of trickle through, but I want you to take this time to kind of start brainstorming, typing in those questions into that Q&A button. And we're going to be answering it at the panel. So as you know, we have a lot of great information, a lot of great experience on this panel. So yes, ask those questions and I'm going to be asking our panel. So let's start off here with Ryan saying, do any of you think about moving into data science? It seems many data analytics tasks can be automated with software. Are you finding yourself programming away your tasks with Python and etc.? Anyone have experience with this? I can add, oh, go Matt.
Yeah, well, I was just going to say, I think of data science as more statistics and sort of A/B testing and things like that. So certainly there's crossover in the analytics work and the data scientist work. I'm sure data scientists are automating things, but that work can be done by analysts as well, and that's sort of what I get excited about too, is automation. Using Python, using whatever tools you can. But yeah, I think about data science as more just statistics driven. Personally, it's how I think about it.
I would agree with you, Matt. I'd say, yeah, it's typically a natural transition for a lot of analysts to go into data science, but I'd still separate them into these two different categories. And even though you do automate a lot of the work in like analytics, the usage of Python can be essentially for like two different things. And so some of that like predictive modeling and like the advanced statistics that you do in data science, you wouldn't use Python for that in like more foundational data analytics, but you would use Python for both. So you can definitely use Python in both of those types of areas just for different things. But if you're interested in going into data science, I would recommend freshening up on your statistics. So hopefully that answered that. Next question, Catherine, Julian, and or Matt, what is your opinion on projects, and do you recommend sites to get the projects going to show employers that know what you're doing? So first question, what are your guys' opinions on projects? And second question, do you have any recommendations for these sites to get these projects to show the future employers?
Sure. Angie, I can speak to that. I would say that yes, my opinion on creating some sort of project portfolio is really, really important. And you want to, be able to speak to these projects, even during interviews, they'll ask you, what is the one time, you worked on this? And if you do not have prior working experience, then your projects, that you do maybe outside of work or in school with past stream, you can put those projects out there and you can speak to them. So there's many ways you can do that. If you have projects that are, tool specific, let's say like, Google Sheets. So with Google Sheets, you can always, have your project in the Google Sheets or in the, in any Google technology that you are using. And you can always share those links with the interviewers or the recruiters. If it's Tableau, you can still do the same thing. Tableau has a public platform where you can have those projects for everyone to view. If you have, other projects that you are not, you're not finding a way to put them out there, I would say, create, a Google Doc or something like that and put as much detail as you can there. That can also be helpful, and you can share it out. I remember one thing that I did that was, I don't even know where the website is right now, but I tried to create a website for myself where I put all my, projects there. So for people who are able to do that and, can build a website, that can also be something that really, really impresses, recruiters and hiring managers. So those are some of the avenues I can recommend.
I think that's great advice, Catherine. I would definitely agree. Also, just a little plug for career services. If you are interested in the certificate and then decide to do career services, we do actually help you set up a portfolio. So a lot of the projects in the certificate keep in mind that like you want portfolio ready projects. So essentially in career services, we just help you like make them portfolio presentable because you've already done all the work. So for example, in like our Tableau course, you just put them up on Tableau Public, and it's essentially your portfolio ready to go. So definitely recommend taking advantage of all those resources when you sign up for the certificate. So hopefully that answered that. I know on this panel we love SQL. So any advice on how to learn SQL for someone who has no coding experience? Any courses, resources, cough, cough, pad stream, but any others?
I would definitely start with Pathstream, but I tend to like books. So there's a learning SQL book with the frog on it, which is really good. And you can probably find YouTube videos, because I found a couple that like show some of the examples in that book live. So that could be a potential separate resource.
I feel like I know exactly what you're talking about with that book with the frog on it, because they have a lot of editions of other programming languages, but I'm like, I can't think of the name. So if anyone knows it, please put in the chat, but maybe it'll come to me. Catherine,
Yeah.
were you gonna say something?
Yeah, I was going to say that to learn SQL, there is like, these websites where they have, built-in, tools where you can run your code. And one that comes to me that I have used like forever is W3 Schools. And, I'm sorry, I go all the way back with W3 Schools and I really love it. But I'm sure there's so many other platforms like that. So, the way that W3 schools is structured is, with every concept, SQL concept from just a select statement to from and to insights, to just every small, sub-module, they really lay it out for you, and that's a good platform. So you can start from there, and then you can flesh it out and see what else is out there.
So many great resources. And also, this is not maybe like to actively learn, but once you've learned it and then you want to keep kind of the content fresh. One of my favorite things to do is actually, if y'all use LinkedIn, is to follow a lot of these like data professionals, these people that are really like active in the data industry that like to put out data resources. A lot of them really like to utilize SQL as like their main topic to write content on. And they make really great SQL like posts and like little tips, tricks, whatever it may be. So even just by like connecting or following them, you can always kind of stay up to date by just following these people that write content related to the topics you're in without having to fully go on to another course.
Hey, Angie, I just have another hot tip. Even in Excel, like if you're working in Sheets or Excel, you can write SQL in there, right? You can use the query function and write SQL in there. And so to me, that's a great way to practice, because your data can be in the next tab over, and you can just query that data and go nuts with it. Be wrong, be right, have fun.
Super great point, Matt. Yes, I forgot about that one. But yes, if you've ever used Google Sheets, anything like that, literally a little equals query, and then you've got it. You just start writing your SQL query. But okay, moving on to the next question. What would y'all recommend for the best way to someone to start a career path, assuming in data, without a degree?
Boot camps. But yes, so boot camps are great, way to launch into the field. Pathstream has, a great, setup for the data, career path with, Excel, SQL, statistics, Tableau. So that is really, one of the ways that you can launch in there, in the field. So yeah, boot camps, I would recommend.
Yep, echo that, and get into community, get into the data community, whatever that looks like, hackathons, whatever. Just connect with people, and get to know people and bring value, and they'll see the value, and it'll open doors for sure.
Yes, 1000% agree with all of those. I would say a lot of either students, friends, all those that I know that are now working professionals, whether it be in data or other types of roles, that have gotten the jobs have been a lot through either boot camps, or sometimes there are certain companies that like to hire for it can be specifically like, oh, someone without a degree or other particular things, or just like networking. So just building up that network, like everyone mentioned. So yeah, I would say first building up the skills and then building up that network. How long did it take to get your certificate through Pathstream? How long did it take to find a job in data analytics? So I'm actually going to take the first part, and then we'll pass on the second part. So it can vary depending on the certificate you take, but each course is about 9 weeks. So, and also like who you take it from. So that meaning like which school you take it from, but anywhere from like 8 to 9 weeks per course. So that's typically how long it takes to complete the certificate. And then the next question, how long did it take to find a job in data analytics after finishing the certificate program? So this can also vary, but actually maybe I can just pass it on to Julian.
So I finished the Pathstream course in March, it took me about 3 months, I want to say. I got my offer in June. I didn't actually start till July, but I got the offer in June. So about 3.5 months. It was a lot of interviewing and a lot of no's. I did get a lot of no's, but just the perseverance you need for data in general, same applies to just every time you hear no, just got to get back up and keep going. But it was 3 months.
Thanks for sharing that, Julian. I will say Julian was like really great at everything that came with like the job search process. He was always on it. It was a really structured process for him. So I would say typically it takes about 3 months, like minimum. If there's anything less, like it was really almost like an outlier for us. And we're like, wow, okay, congratulations, really exciting. But I would say, I'd say like maybe average actually like 3 months. So yeah, I'd say about 3 months, but yeah, it becomes another journey when you start that job search process. So just something to keep in mind that yes, it can be 3 months, but you're going to be putting in some work for those months up until you get that job. Okay. Next question. What is an example of a data analytics project that you could showcase on your portfolio? Maybe someone that someone has worked on, maybe for your own portfolio.
Yeah. So I would say that anything that interests you. So if you have, an interest in a particular field or industry, you can actually make a data analytics project out of that. There, you can leverage open data sets. I know that there is many government data sets that are open, aviation, the World Bank, and all these metrics on so many different things around the world. So just anything that you find interesting, you can make a project out of it, and then you can showcase it on your portfolio to your colleagues, to hiring managers and everything. I remember one of the projects that I showcased when I was looking for a job was actually a project I did just out of curiosity. I was an international student studying in America, and I was curious how many international students were in my university. And the way that I didn't have that data then, but the way I went about that is, since I interfaced with the International Student Office so many times, I'll tell you, international students have so many problems, from housing to anything. So yeah, they always know us. So yeah, I just kind of approached them and said, I'm thinking of doing a project that really shows where people come from in Creighton University, and I used Tableau for that. So with the data that I got from the office, I was able just like to place people on the map of the world. So you could see how many students we're having from from Europe, from Africa, from the Middle East, and so many other areas. And that interested me at that time. Moving on, there's some other things that interest me right now, but that is an example.
That is a really great advice, Catherine. I'd say also, if you wanted to showcase maybe experience with like a tool or a skill that you don't have industry experience with, but you actually know how to use it. Like Catherine mentioned, maybe focus on the data that you want, but use, for example, like SQL or Python or whatever you want to showcase, use that as like the primary tool or skill in that particular project. Also, like maybe you start seeing some keywords in job postings like exploratory data analysis or data wrangling or whatever. Make that the focal point of your project. So it can literally be on like tweets of like, I don't know, whatever you like, right, on Twitter, but make it focused on like cleaning the data on that using SQL, whatever it is. So adding like your own twist on it, but using tools that you know are going to be used in potential future, that are going to be of interest for potential future employers.
I just want to add on to that. I think charts, even just basic charts, are a great tool to use because we've talked so much about the hard skills of SQL and a lot of questions about Python, but communication is an underrated skill. A lot of your stakeholders most likely won't have the technical knowledge you have. So cleaning up that data and being able to present it in charts or Tableau dashboards where they can understand it is something that would definitely help you get your foot in the door.
Great advice. Yes, usually when it all comes down to it, like a lot of people don't see the data cleaning, right? All they see is the visualization you created. So making sure it's like clear for your stakeholders. So really great point, Julian. Okay, great. And Matt, glad you pointed out Kaggle. If anyone's interested in any data sets for these more like freelancey type projects or independent projects, I mean, Matt put the link for Kaggle, which is a really great website to get free data sets on like every topic you can think of at this point. And yeah, it's on the chat. So definitely go check that out. Circling back to Python, what is your opinion on learning Python, and do any of you work with it?
I can say I've worked with it to build pipelines, and so and for me that meant writing some files and keeping some files in GitHub, calling it with Airflow. But my point here is I needed SQL files as well, and so I'm gonna sound like a broken record and just say learn SQL first, because if you're using Python, you'll probably be using SQL in the process, at least is my experience. So Python is awesome and powerful. But for me, I feel like SQL should come first, but that's my opinion.
I love the hierarchy here, Matt. You're like SQL, SQL, SQL. Yes, anyone else, anyone's experience? We can also say, hey, I don't use Python. Like that's not part of my role, because I think there's a lot of intimidation when it comes to Python. People are seeing it in roles and there's like, should I learn it? Can I even get a job without Python, right? So I'd love to hear like, hey, that's not part of my job.
Yeah, it's not part of my job right now.
Ditto. Yeah, right now, currently.
I would say the same. I wouldn't stress it too much in the data analyst world. I mean, I've taken on ad hoc projects where I'm experimenting with Python, but I wouldn't base, if you want SQL and to be a data analyst, I don't think it's a necessity.
Yeah, I agree with what everyone shared. Essentially, Python's a good skill to have, but not necessary. Like you can still definitely get a role as an analyst, even more senior analyst without Python. But you'll see that there are some roles that require it. So I think it depends into like looking into the type of work you want to do and the kind of like companies you want to work for. So just something to keep an eye out for. I'd say if this is what's stopping you from applying to roles, for example, you have all the other skills, but you're like, hey, I can't apply before I have Python. Let's not do that. Go ahead, start applying. Python should definitely not be your blocker for that. And let's see, I think we have 2 minutes left, but are there any questions in the chat that we might have missed? I think this might be a question. So, oh, Matt got it. Okay, great. So I think we got all the questions. And just to call out, if you are already in the certificate and you've already completed your projects and you haven't gotten copies of your projects, you can email your instructor's email to just send you downloadable versions of your projects. So I want to make sure that everyone has access to that to be able to build your portfolio. But yes, again, just a little plug. If at the end of this, you're like, wow, I love PathStream, I love data, let's do this. Definitely check out our programs at pathstream.com/programs. You can be interested in our data certificate. It's a really great experience. And yeah, we had a question, is this remote work? Yes, it's online content. But it was so great getting to talk to everyone. Thank you so much, Catherine, Julian, Matt, for all your insight, everything about your experience, and hope everyone got to learn a little bit about data.